I were to ask you to picture cave art in your mind, what might you come up with? My best guess is you're probably thinking along the lines of Neolithic age art, those commonly seen caveman drawings along the walls. I don't blame you. That is one of the most common forms of cave art seen in media, from documentaries to conspiracy theories to movies like The Croods. However, cave art can be so much more grand, and in fact it might be one of the grandest forms of art in terms of Buddhist history. My name is Miranda Wigton-Torres, and I am a major in East Asian languages and cultures with a minor in art history. Buddhist caves, also known as Buddhist grottoes, have been a special interest of mine for quite some time. Most caves are done very different from one another, and it is important to highlight how amazing and unique these caves are. Today, I will be providing a small background on the significance of Buddhist imagery. Then I will go on to share my favorite Buddhist cave art sites. Lastly, I will discuss why I believe it is important that these sites remain protected and well preserved. Buddhist imagery. Why is it so important? It is significant to Buddhist faith. Buddhists follow sacred texts known as sutras. This here is an excerpt from the Lotus Sutra. It says, "Those who, for the Buddhas, have erected images, carving all their myriads of marks, have realized the Buddha way. They may have used the 7 gems, or bronze or copper, white or red, wax, lead or tin, iron, wood or clay, or perhaps lacquered cloth in making Buddha images. Persons such as these have realized the Buddha way." It is a means of worship. In dedicating images of the Buddha to those who have passed, it can aid in their reincarnation by gaining them good karma. Many wealthy donors would pay to have images made as a means of dedication. For example, if a family member passed away and maybe they didn't lead the greatest life and you want to make sure that they gain better karma so their next life isn't so rough and isn't as much of a punishment, well, you could either make an image and dedicate it to them, or you could pay to have one made for them. Either way, you are donating good karma to your family member in their life. So that way, they suffer perhaps a little bit less. Yungan Grotto in Shaanxi Province. The Yungan Grotto has 53 major caves and around 1,100 minor caves. A majority of these sculptures were independently contracted by donors. As you can see in this room, in this photo here, there are many different images, big and small. These big images likely cost more money to have made. All of these images and a good chunk of the caves are each donated and paid for by different people. However, that is not the case in every single room. There are also very grand dedications. For example, in this video showing Cave 6 of Yungan Grotto, this was a commission from the Emperor Zhao Wen, and it's considered to be one of the grandest on site. As you can see, this is carved from floor to ceiling and painted, and while the paint has faded quite a bit, the detail cannot be missed. This is a highly elaborate room, likely dedicated to his parents, as filial piety is very important in Chinese culture. As you can see in these pictures, small sculptures and rooms weren't the only things on this site. There are also these large, less detailed statues of Buddha carved into the cliff sides. These images are colossal in comparison to the people in these photos and show the range at which the sculptures in this site are made. Longmen Grotto in Henan Province. Longmen Grotto has more than 2,345 caves. There are an estimated minimum of 100,000 statues and nearly 2,500 inscriptions. Donors consist of emperors, other royal family, generals, rich families, and the famous Wu Zetian, who is considered to be one of the greatest emperors in Chinese history. 30% of the sculptures on this site date from the Northern Wei period and 60% from the Tang Dynasty. The other 10 are kind of sporadic and aren't necessarily traced to any specific dynasty. A piece of Longmen is actually not very far from here. The photo Shown here is a piece of a wall from one of the Longbing caves that had fallen, shattered, and then was later repaired and brought to a museum. It is actually on display at the Nelson Atkins Museum, which is less than an hour drive away from you. It's interesting to see such a grand site such as this have a piece so close to home. As you can see in this video, Longmen is very popular, and there are a lot of people who come to see these sculptures, especially this main grand sculpture here, showing one of the Buddhas with his attendants, some bodhisattvas, and some guards. While some of the cliffside has been deteriorated, a majority of this image is actually still intact, and you can see all the detail put into these. Mogao Grotto in Gansu province. This is a bit different from all the others. They have an actual structure covering the original cave entrances. You might be wondering why that is. The Mogao Grotto is a system of temples made from caves. There are about 500 cave temples, and a structure was made to protect the art in the cave, as it is majority paintings opposed to sculptures like the others. While the painting fading in the others might not be as much of a big deal, as the sculptures are still deteriorating at not as fast of a rate, they need to keep these vibrant paints as safe as possible, because when they fade, there will be nothing left. This site has a long, rich history. The town nearby, known as Dunhang, became a popular commerce site because of its proximity to the Silk Road. Because of this site is a popular pilgrimage for Buddhists who were traveling along the Silk Road at the time. It is full of highly elaborate paintings, and as you can see in this video here, it's completely covered. And many of these smaller images, especially the ones you see on the ceiling, were individually donated. This site had been active for centuries, and it shows in its work. You can tell just how well loved and well taken care of this site was. Even the blues are still vibrant, and that is not as often seen. The other sites only really had red still visible. Why do these sites need so much protection? Well, when these sites are forgotten, they deteriorate. And unfortunately, in some cases, it's more than just that. In places like Bamyan, which is in Afghanistan, people are no longer part of the Buddhist faith anymore. And while you may think, oh well, it can still be a historical site, while that was the case at Bamyan for a while, and people were making an effort to preserve what was left of this abandoned site, this site unfortunately did not last very long. In 2001, this site was destroyed after centuries of being known by the Taliban. They just simply didn't want a Buddhist site in their Muslim nation anymore. There are other cases like Sokuram, which was abandoned for quite a long amount of time. It was found once again back after 1910 when Japan occupied Korea, and while the Japanese tried to fix it, they just created more damage. It wasn't until after the occupation ended that they were able to restore Sokuram to its former glory. Sokuram is different from the others. It is entirely man-made. However, it is still, in essence, a grotto. It is underground on a mountainside. Sites like these need to remain preserved, unless they'll be forgotten by time. All of these places are slowly deteriorating, but with people in studies and in areas such as the ones I wish to go into, if we make more of an effort, we might be able to preserve these sites and make them last so much longer than they could have if they were left alone. While they are already being worked on and have been worked on for several decades at this point, I feel like there is still so much more we could do. Many of the sites I showed you today were made around the 4th century, seeing as how we're now in the 21st century. 4 centuries from now, it would have surpassed 1,000 years of existence. Keeping that in mind, it is so important that these sites are preserved and future generations will be able to see them. I hope I was able to teach you a lot and simply show you the beauty of cave art. And I hope I helped you gain a greater appreciation for the many arts of East Asia. Thank you for watching.